London, 1303. The king's gold is gone, every last penny, stolen from beneath Westminster Abbey. No alarms, no guards, just silence, and a bloody monk holding a shovel. What the hell happened here? I'll tell you, because I was there. Name's Richard. Richard of Pudlicott, tanner, weaver, occasional bastard, and the man who stole the fucking crown. Welcome to Mission Westminster. This isn't fiction. This is the craziest medieval heist you've never heard of. Subscribe if you love stories that sound like a movie. But every word is true. And tell us in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. We'd love to know where in the world this mission finds you. Name's Richard, Richard of Pudlicott, a weaver by trade. Well, officially. Somewhere in the city records, if anyone's ever daft enough to read them, I'm still listed as a man of fabric, not of felony. But here's the catch. I bloody hate fabric. At first, sure, it was interesting. Childhood craft, all those threads, patterns, guild laws. I lapped it up like ale on payday, but I soon realized that honest work is a brilliant idea for people who are already rich. For the rest of us, it's a leash. You can run, but only in circles. Life in early 14th century England wasn't exactly knights and courtly love. It was mud. Literal, miserable mud. Every damn day you fight not to starve, and if you're lucky, maybe to keep a shred of dignity. Taxes climbed like rats on a corpse, the markets were overcrowded, and guild masters were greedy toads who charged you for the air in your own shop. And on top of that, the king was at war. Guess who paid for it? Not the knights, not the bishops. Us, the poor sods with calluses on our hands and holes in our boots. And that's when a question slithered into my head, the kind that splits your life into before and after. What if I stopped playing fair? Not honest, but smart. Not legal, but bloody spectacular. I was done selling scraps of wool for a few measly pennies while churchmen measured gold in goblets. I wasn't dumber than them. I just didn't have the right keys to the door that led to real treasure. Then one day, I found out the treasure wasn't far. Not figuratively, literally. Right beneath my feet, under Westminster, in a crypt, a vault, where they kept the royal jewels, the king's coin, the relics, and everything else that sparkled and screamed, "Don't touch." And at that moment, the weaver in me died, and the man you're listening to now was born. I was pushing 30, that age when you're not stupid enough to believe in honest labor anymore, but not yet old enough to just roll over and accept your fate. I lived above a workshop that stank of sweat, damp, and broken dreams. My landlord, a crusty old bastard, kept nagging me about unpaid wool deliveries. I told him he could choke on the bloody wool. I was done. Hell, pay taxes? When I barely had enough to eat? What am I, a bloody idiot? London, by the way, wasn't some fairy tale capital. It was a stew of filth, fog, piss, and people. Sometimes I felt like we were all boiling in someone else's soup. Cheap labor for the rich, tax meat for the king, or fodder for his next war. And some of us, just background actors in the royal play called England. But you know what else London had? Money. Mountains of it. Just not in my pocket. Gold lived in guild chests, pawnbroker vaults, monastery cellars. It flowed like the Thames, just not in my direction. And here's the juicy bit. The biggest pile of gold wasn't hidden in some far-off castle or on a ship. It was right in the heart of London, beneath Westminster Abbey. And I thought, why the hell not? Who decided that this treasure had to sit there untouched until the end of days? Maybe someone, like me, had every right to move it a little, redistribute it creatively. How did I find out about the treasure? Simple. People gossip, and monks get drunk. Back then, I had a habit of working taverns, not for wages, for information. Some people drink to forget. I drank to listen. Every pint of ale came with another loose tongue, especially if that tongue wore a robe. That's where I first heard it, in a tavern called The Three Swine and the Deacon. A monk, pissed out of his holy mind, mumbling about gold nobody dares to touch, about eternal silence beneath the stones, and how God sees all, except what's under him. I wasn't sure what he meant, but hell if I didn't catch the gist. There's something precious under Westminster, and it's being wasted just lying there. And I thought, screw it, that's a lead. Of course I couldn't do it alone. One man doesn't dig a tunnel, carry treasure, and outsmart half a kingdom. I needed someone special. Someone who already gave the middle finger to the law but wasn't a complete knob with a knife. I thought of Roger Hill, former monk school dropout, current thief with highly questionable morals. The man could vanish in a crowd, lie better than he prayed, and knew how a keyhole looked from the inside. Once, he stole an entire ale barrel from a tavern. Not the ale, the barrel. That's what I call talent. I found him at the public baths, steaming like a dumpling, puffing on something dodgy, and arguing with two women whose ages hovered somewhere between God forgive me and taverns closed. Roger, I said, you like gold? I like anything that doesn't scream when you carry it, he said. That was my sign. The crew was forming. I walked out of the baths with Roger, soaked and smiling. He asked me straight up if we'd have to kill anyone. I told him honestly, only if they catch us. While London went about its stinking daily grind, markets, hangings, church bells, markets again, we were getting ready to pull off the impossible. We didn't dream. We dug. Literally. Step one was done. I had the idea. I had the motive. Now I had a partner. But that wasn't enough. Stick around. Because next, I'll tell you how I outsmarted the king's guards, dug a bloody tunnel into the royal vault, and almost made an abbot lose his faith in God. They say every thief has their moment, that point of no return, when you drop the wool shears and pick up a shovel. For me, that moment came wrapped in a single word I overheard at a tavern. Treasury. Not royal residence, not sacred sanctuary, just plain and filthy treasury. And you know why that word got me so hot under the collar? Because I already knew what was buried beneath Westminster Abbey. Not prayers, not bones, not just saintly knickknacks, but a royal stash. The financial beating heart of England. Edward I, yes, that Edward, the one who tormented the Welsh and was eyeing up France like it owed him money, wasn't just a bloodthirsty king, he was a bloody accountant. He didn't keep his treasure in the Tower or in some faraway castle. No, he kept it in a monastery. Why? Because it was sacred, you see. Who'd be mad enough to rob a holy place? Hint, me. This wasn't just a vault. It was a combination of central bank, pawn shop, mint, and holy fort, all under one roof. Westminster Palace was next door, sure, but the real juice, the real meat, was under the Abbey stones. And that meat? I was hungry, so I began casing the joint, not like a pilgrim, like a bastard. I spent days pretending to be a beggar weaver, lurking by the gates, memorizing guard shifts. I melted into monk crowds, waited for someone to drop a key. I knew the layout better than I knew my own pants. Where the crypt sat, where the vents were, how many steps between the two main pillars in the nave, how many times Brother Janus went to piss, and how many goblets of wine it took before Abbot Benedict passed out snoring. This wasn't just surveillance, it was foreplay with crime. Then I found out something delicious. There were old Roman drains and tunnels under the Abbey, long forgotten, half-rotted, and perfect for digging. You could tunnel into the vault and nobody would hear a bloody thing, especially not if you had strong backs and a monk's key to the back door. Meanwhile, I was doing my homework on the target itself, because before you steal the bird, you weigh it. The royal treasury stored gold coins and bars, silver jewelry, bejeweled relics, royal seals and state papers, church goblets, crosses, relic boxes, and pilgrim offerings, the desperate donations of sinners hoping to buy their way into heaven. It wasn't just money. It was politics, power, piety, and paranoia in one stone box. I imagined holding a royal reliquary in my calloused hands, weighing a sack of silver till it whispered, "Run," and picturing myself, Richard of bloody Pudlicott, not a weaver, not a serf, but a man who took what was never offered. Roger and I knew we needed more people, shovels, and a healthy disregard for commandments. We found them not in the alleys, not in the inns, in the Abbey itself. Yep, here's the punchline. None of this would have worked without the monks. A few holy brothers had long since swapped faith for greed. They were ready to trade silence for silver. They knew which doors were unlocked at night. They knew when the guards got sleepy. They even knew where the especially sensitive donations were stashed. I didn't ask them to betray God. I just offered them an alternative gospel, one that paid in coin. So here's what we had: the layout, the guard schedule, the underground map, inside men in robes, and a crew that asked no bloody questions. All that was left? Dig. But before we get down into the dirt, stick around, because next you'll find out how we started the filthiest, boldest, and most brilliant tunneling job medieval Europe ever saw, and how the entire plan nearly collapsed because of one barrel of herring. What's the hardest part of robbing a king's treasury? Not the digging, not dodging the guards, not even hauling the gold. No, the hardest part is not recruiting a bloody idiot. Because an idiot, he's like a crack in your boat, seems harmless, until you're halfway through carrying sacks of silver and he blurts out, "Wait, are we going to hell for this?" And suddenly your whole operation's halfway to the gallows. So Roger and I approached recruitment like maths. Strict criteria, not too honest, not too stupid, owns hands, preferably no conscience. First up, Martin the Digger, former gravedigger from Finsbury. Martin had two great assets. One, he knew how to dig. Two, he knew how to shut the hell up. He'd once been accidentally buried alive after passing out drunk in a vineyard. Dug himself out. Never spoke much since. "How much do you want per night?" I asked. "Half a jug of ale and a bit of meat. And don't ask why I smell like a corpse," he said. "Perfect. Next. Sam from Mitcham, a tinsmith with an odd hobby, making skeleton keys just for fun. No reason. He just liked locks. He could stare at a keyhole the way others stare at the Virgin Mary. "You afraid of God?" I asked him. "Only if he's got the key to my piss bucket," he said. Hired. Third. Mary No Name. She didn't ask what we were planning. She just showed up after Roger whispered something about gold and needing someone who could move unseen, lift things that weren't hers, and, preferably, kill if required. Mary had once worked as a cook in a monastery. She knew how to appear and disappear. Once broke an abbot's nose with a ladle, and he apologized to her. I still don't know how. Now we were 6. Me, the brain, Roger, the mouth, Martin, the muscle, Sam, the fingers, Mary, the shadow, and Brother Thomas, our man on the inside, a monk who knew way too much and had clearly made peace with his sins. I looked at them and felt proud. You don't often gather a team capable of either robbing the king or blowing up an abbey by accident and looking good doing it. We met at night in an old cellar outside the city. No candles, no talking, just maps, dirt, the stink of secrets, and the silent itch of ambition. The plan was simple. Dig a tunnel under the abbey, using ancient Roman drains. Break into the crypt where the vault sat. Rob it at night. Haul the treasure out through monastic storage. Disappear. Sounds easy, right? Here's something every man who's ever dug under royal property will tell you. Not everything underground is dirt. Coming up next, muck, stink, stupid surprises, and the first sign our perfect plan might be royally fucked. Stick around to find out what went wrong in our bloody tunnel and why I nearly choked to death. Not from fear, but from one dead raccoon. When you're digging a tunnel under a monastery, don't picture yourself as a hero. You're not a hero. You're a pile of mud with a shovel. That first week, my arms hurt so much I'd wake up cursing everyone, the king, the ground, the stones, the bloody idea itself. The soil wasn't even soil. It was some kind of greasy monster that clung to the shovel like it was getting revenge. And the stench, God help us, rotten wood, dead rats, candle wax. I'm pretty sure we found the femur of a Roman soldier. "You sure this is worth it?" Roger muttered, yanking a rib out of the muck. "Wait till you see the royal goblet," I grunted, dragging up another bucket of slime. We dug at night. By day, we were model citizens. Martin, back to grave digging. Sam, keymaker. Mary, invisible. Roger, the Shadow King. Me, back to pretending I gave a damn about weaving. Our base was an old wine cellar. That's where we kept the tools, maps, sacks, and that constant gut feeling that we were absolutely, catastrophically fucked. Still, we pressed on. We had to build supports, wooden beams to stop the tunnel caving in, which meant stealing timber. We pinched planks from an abandoned tavern, a dock, and one very confused nobleman's stable. If you're reading this, Lord whoever, sorry, your horse stable made a fine contribution to criminal engineering. And then, breakthrough. One night, we hit the outer wall of the crypt. It was like opening a treasure chest with a dragon inside. The silence was deafening. You could hear the wood creak in your hands like it was swearing at you. We were under the Abbey. We could see the stone. Just a few bricks stood between us and the royal vault. The moment of truth. This was it. All or nothing. Legend or noose. Shh, Mary whispered. "I hear someone. Guards." We froze, in total darkness. No lights, no air, soaked, shaking. My heart pounded in my throat. Someone sneezed. Roger. Nearly killed him on the spot. When the noise passed, we moved. Sam slid in his favorite toy, a twisted little key that looked like Satan's spoon. Click, and just like that, the door to the king's treasury creaked open. What did we see? Pure madness. Chests overflowing with gold coins, goblets encrusted with gems, silks, relics, gifts, ornaments. A monk's wet dream. Martin nearly fainted. Roger cried. Mary said nothing, just started packing. And me? I stood there and stared. This wasn't a crime. This was poetry. This was justice. This was hell. This was my moment. We couldn't take everything at once, so we grabbed the top shelf, gold, gems, coins, the good stuff. We moved like ants, fast, silent, surgical. By dawn, we were gone, slipped back through our tunnel, carrying half the crown's wealth in sacks. And we left behind only one thing, an empty chest with a carving that read, "Thanks, with love, Hell." But as you might guess, this isn't the end. You don't steal half of England's treasury and just walk away. Stick around to find out. Who sold us out for a mug of ale? Why Brother Thomas suddenly found God? And how I tried to convince a royal investigator that all that gold was actually for the church. It was too good to last. Silence after a heist is like silence before a storm. Feels safe at first, then the royal boot comes crashing down from the sky. We vanished. Everything had gone according to plan. We split the gold, stashed some, smuggled some through a friendly dock rat. I even bought myself a new pair of boots, first in years, and damn, they were beautiful. Smelled like leather and felony, but then the smell changed. It became fear. You don't see it, you don't hear it, but every thief knows when it creeps in, and I felt it. First, the rumors came fast. Someone robbed the Abbey. The king's lost his mind. The guards didn't see a thing. They took so much they used carts. London is cursed. We went quiet, real quiet. Even Roger, usually a walking joke book, shut up like a tombstone. And then the first betrayal. Brother Thomas, our holy man, the same monk who showed us the keys, gone, vanished. 3 days later, someone saw him at the palace. Maybe he went to confess? Martin asked. You don't confess to the king, I snapped. That same night, they caught 2 of ours. Sam walked into a trap trying to sell a silver spoon, still engraved with Rex. Mary barely escaped, had to leap out a second-story window into a cart full of fish. I disappeared, entirely, hid in a barn, then a dead blacksmith's forge, then a whore's basement. She didn't want money, she wanted stories. So I told her about the tower, the king, how I stole the baptismal goblet of the heir to the throne. She laughed. Then she called the guard. They caught me. 3rd time in my life. But the first time it wasn't funny. They dragged me to court like any other thief. And I was a thief. But not any thief. I was the kind of thief that made the whole system nervous. Not because I was strong, but because I made bloody sense. You broke the law, one investigator said. The law? You mean the thing where the king robs me, but I can't rob him back? I said. That's not law. That's a fucking scam. The trial was chaos. Crowds, spit, cheers, jeers. Someone tried to throw me bread. Someone else, a brick. But most important, they listened. I caught the king's gaze, cold, disgusted, but focused. "Did you really think you could fool the crown?" he asked. "No," I said. "I thought I'd try. And you know what? I bloody did." But the ending? That's still coming. Stick around to find out. Did I stay standing when the rope touched my neck? Did Roger sell me out? And why, even under torture, I kept smiling. Prison isn't always bars. Sometimes it's silence, big, dead, heavy as sin. And when you're sitting in a damp cell tied in ropes, fingers still remembering the weight of royal silver, one question eats you alive. Was it worth it? My answer? Yes. Not because I got rich. I didn't. The gold's long gone. Bribes, losses, or vanished with Roger, whom I never saw again. Maybe he's in France now, telling this story like it's his own. Not because I escaped death, because I didn't. I was tortured, ribs cracked, joints twisted. They wanted names. I gave them none, because I was free. Not because I ran, but because I chose. In a world where you're either taxed, tamed, or trampled, I broke the bloody pattern. I stopped being a cog. I became a problem, a question the system couldn't answer. Yes, there's a price. Yes, it hurts. Yes, there's blood under the fingernails. But when you stand at the edge of the gallows and look out at the crowd, you'll see them, the ones who can't cheer, but their eyes are saying, "Damn right." They didn't hang me, not right away. The king, ever the showman, wanted a public display of mercy. They paraded me through the streets in a cage. Some spat, but others whispered, "That's him." And I heard it. That was enough. Eventually, they let me go. No title, no coin, just a story. A story no knight, abbot, or powdered bastard at court could ever match. Now I live somewhere quiet. I'm writing this not for fame, but for you, the one reading, who knows something in this world is off. That not everything that shines belongs in someone else's vault. That gold is just metal. But freedom is the real treasure. And if I could do it again, digging, scheming, risking, vanishing through a hole in the floor, hell yes, I'd do it again, and again, and again. Because once you've stood inside the king's treasury, holding what the world told you was untouchable, you'll never be a normal man again. Thanks for listening. This was Mission Westminster. Subscribe if you love stories that sound like legends but come from real mud, where weavers become rebels and monks become partners in crime. And drop us a comment below. What would you steal if you knew you'd get away with it?